Welcome to Someone's Gotta Drive. I want to put a trigger warning out there that this podcast does talk about sex abuse, drug abuse, parental drug abuse. While it is meant to be validating, it can be triggering to some. In my last episode, I actually talk about how I got my own place again, not without cost and not without anxiety. My ex decided to start working for a friend of his doing mold remediation. It paid pretty well, but he only was able to work maybe 3 days a week. But it was something. In the meantime, I was adjusting to psychiatric medication for depression and anxiety. It wasn't easy. And when I was working in marketing for the construction company, people who had been in rehab had said what had helped them get through rehab was actually reading the Twilight books. And funny enough, I had one of the DVDs, but I didn't realize that it was a book series. And the only way my ex could get me out of the house was to take me to the library to get some books or some DVDs or something to help entertain me throughout the day. And so, sure enough, I went for the Twilight books. And let me tell you what, it was wonderful to get lost into some books and to not think about my own personal hell. I got into quite a few different series, all normally some sort of mystical, magical, vampire, witch kind of thing going on. So, one day, I got a call from that construction company, and they said, "We understand your anxiety and stress. We do understand what's going on in your life and what you're trying to do. We do need some help. We promise that we won't put as much pressure on you as before. Would you please come back and work for us at night, part-time?" And honestly, my ex was like, "We kind of need the money. And I'm making most of the income now. So it'd be nice to have just some supplemental income." So I was like, sure, why not? And I went to go back to work. It was a different management crew, a different setting. It wasn't too terribly bad. There was a woman there who was a manager, and she was really nice, except for when she thought we were trying to go over her head. And it was her, another girl that I worked with, and me. And I would cover her management shift sometimes, like on a Saturday morning. I would go in the morning and get started up, and then she would come in a little later on because she had a child. And sometimes I would also babysit for her too. And one day in particular, I had gotten the flu or food poisoning or something, but I was hurling my guts up. And I tried calling her. I left her voicemails. I left her text messages. I did everything I could. Finally, I had to call the other girl and just say, "Hey, I can't get a hold of our manager. I need you to go in there and open up." And she was like, "Everything okay?" I am literally hurling my guts up. I can't make it in. The next day, the next work day, I was reprimanded by that manager. Why didn't I call her? Why did she have to find out later on? And I actually whipped out my cell phone and showed her, "I called you at this time, and here is proof that I texted you as well. Wherever you were, you didn't have cell service. I tried calling. I did everything I could." But she didn't apologize. She just said, "Well, next time, try harder." And it just kind of felt like I was kind of back in that situation where I was doing everything I could to be that nice person, to do right. But if someone even thought the slightest thing, I was the one getting my head chewed off. I continued to work there for about another year. There were days where it was great and days where it wasn't. But when Christmas hit, I often didn't make a lot of money. And all my money would go towards rent and bills and everything else, where other people there maybe had someone that did work a better job, or they were living with their parents or stuff like that. And that year, they were very generous to me when it came to Christmas. One day, I was at work and I got a call from the landlord. And I said, hey, what's going on? And he said, where's your rent money? I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. I just left $400 with my husband. Well, I just knocked on the door and he said, you don't have it. I was just shocked. Where could it have gone in a matter of 2 hours? I left the house at 4. You're there by 6. Where could it have gone? So, started my shift that day with giving him a call. Hey, the landlord called. Where's the money that I gave you? Yeah, I'm sorry, but we have a problem. What do you mean we have a problem? Well, I just went and blew that money on some Oxycontin. For real? We're back at this? You know, I had left my mom's house because you said you would sober up and clean up. It's like, I did, and I tried, but my teeth, they're really bad and they really hurt. And so I kind of got hooked on the pills again. Oh, for the love of Pete. Well, I tried to work that night, and then I got home. We had a big argument, and that's when I called his dad. I had never called his dad for help, not when it came to his son. My ex was very private. He didn't want his family knowing anything. But damn it, this can't keep going on. So I called his dad and I said, hey, your son's addicted to pills. Well, that sucks. Yeah, it does. And I need to get him into rehab, but I don't have the money for it. Do you think you could help? Nope. Sorry. All right. I'll try to figure something out. And at that moment, I realized, why is no one willing to help? So I went to his mother and I just said, what am I supposed to do? I can't keep it up like this. And his mom just told me that I should get 2 or 3 jobs and work morning, noon, and night and make sure that we have the money for whatever her son wants or needs because he deserves it and I'm a piece of crap and I should be doing everything I can to do nice by him. After all, I left him before. Oh, yeah, that's where I was at. Back to square one. I remember my ex looking at me going, what are you going to do? He was worried I was going to leave him. But where was I going to go? I had nowhere to go. My parents weren't going to take me in. So I looked for other resources. And we actually found outpatient rehab. Outpatient rehab was a methadone clinic where every day he would have to go in, get dosed. They did therapy. They did group sessions. They, made sure his health was in order. But every day he would go there and get dosed. It was $100 a week. Not for nothing. Oxycodone pills are going for $30 a pill on the street. At least at that time it was. I don't know what the price is now. And if he needed 3 pills to get him through the day, there went $100 in a day. So it wasn't actually a bad option when it came to finances. $100 a week or $100 a day. We would figure it out and try to swing it. And that's what we did. We put him in methadone. In the meantime, when we did have a little extra money, we would take him to a dental school and try to have his teeth fixed. They kept trying to fix them so many times that I finally just said, stop fixing them and just yank them out. And he was like, but then I'll have no teeth. Great, then you'll have to get dentures. But we can't keep going this way. The car that had broken down while my ex was going to auto school was finally fixed. So I told him that he had to start coming out to where I was working and find a job. Because honestly, I couldn't keep being the one that did it all the time. So he came out, found a local pizza joint, and started delivering pizzas. At the same time, I was working in marketing. It wasn't too terribly bad. And finally, we were able to live at least a little bit more comfortably, and I could at least eat a meal if that meant bringing home a pizza at night. Things weren't getting too bad, but I really wanted out of marketing. It was hourly, but commission as well. And on the nights that were great, it was really great. And on the nights that weren't great, it was really not great. And for my depression and anxiety, I really needed to get out of marketing and sales because of the roller coaster, because of the highs and the lows. I just didn't think I could really manage it anymore. So I went ahead and found a position at the pizza shop that my ex was working for. The manager there had decided that he was going to leave and go back home to where his family lived out in Western Maryland, and offered the management position to my husband. But with that being said, that meant that they were then going to be down a delivery driver. And it kind of worked out because then we could just go to work together. He would manage, I would drive, and we got this. And that's exactly what we did. He met with the owners. They really liked him. They offered him the position. And for once, we had some steadier income coming in. And honestly, I didn't have to deal with all the highs and lows of sales. At the time, I was still in therapy. I was still on the medication, and I was doing everything I could to get my health back in order as well. I knew that I needed to get away from all the highs and lows and drama and everything else that was going on. And one day I decided, well, why don't I have the therapist meet my husband? Maybe she could understand. I brought my ex-husband into that therapy session, and the next therapy session, she said, honestly, I don't think you should be with him. You're terrified. You refuse to say anything in front of him. And honestly, throughout all of our therapy sessions, I've got a feeling that you're not really telling me everything. And she was right. I wasn't telling her everything. Because one of the things they tell you is, if there is something going on illegally that we need to notify the police about, we will. And well, he was doing drugs, and I did not want them notifying the police. So that was my last session with her. And after that, I decided to wean myself off of the medication and see if I could live a life without medicine. Because nothing more depressing than realizing that, I don't want to be on medicine all the time. And here they were telling me, oh, you have bipolar tendencies. You're going to be on medication for the rest of your life. On top of that, my ex-husband would say, oh, she's bipolar, whenever we would get into a fight. So I decided to wean myself off the medication and kind of show everybody I was normal. They were the ones that were screwed up. I started working at that pizza shop, and it was nice because I kind of felt like I had a little bit of freedom. I could just drive the car, deliver a pizza, make some tip money, listen to music, smoke a cigarette, listen to a book if I wanted to, whatever. I kind of felt like it was the perfect job for me. Now, by this point, my sister had actually come up from Virginia and moved to Maryland. I don't believe it was specifically for her to take care of mom, because I do remember that she was also working when she first moved up here. But taking care of mom was one of the perks because they didn't really want me around. And honestly, I didn't want to be around them. She wasn't willing to make the changes and sacrifices that it took to live a longer life. And she made it very clear that she was never going to get sober and that this was just what we were going to have to deal with. And it's just not what I wanted in life. Meanwhile, my ex-husband, he was in the methadone clinic and, showing signs that he was willing to do a program to get better. So I took the lesser of the two evils. My mom would come into the pizza shop from time to time and watch me make pizza or help my ex-husband run the pizza joint. And she was always just so proud. And at that point, the owners had met me. And honestly, we got along great. They loved that I was always trying to push for marketing and sales and try to get more business into the pizza joint. on top of trying to help him manage and everything else. And one of the things that came to light in his management style was that he had a temper. And there were a lot of times that even the owners would be like, how do you deal with his temper? And I was like, I don't know. I just do. But the owners of the pizza shop also owned 2 or 3 other businesses. They owned a union pipe fitter company, which was construction. They also rented houses and, were landlords. They offered me a position to come to their office and not only help them in the construction side, but also do all of the back end business work for the pizza joint, paying the bills, paying the payroll, things like that. And so I went ahead and started working 2 jobs. During the day, I would go to their office and run the business end of things. And then at night, I would come in and I would also deliver pizzas and help close up and then take my ex-husband and I home. One night in particular, my ex-husband was driving us home because I had worked a 14-hour day and I was just really tired. And he started nodding off behind the wheel of the car. I woke him up and was like, hey, yo, whoa. And he finally woke up, veered back on the road, was like, it's nothing, I'm all right. By the time we got home, he looked at me and said, honestly, if you didn't do that, yeah, I probably would have crashed the car and killed us. From that moment on, I would not let him drive me again, at least not at night. It was so scary. Due to his attitude, we weren't really having a good time holding on to some employees. Some were good employees that did not care to work for him. Others just didn't care for him and they were done. Sometimes employees would come up to me again and say, how do you deal with his attitude? It's so bad. He's always so angry. And I kind of felt like, he's always wanted to be a cook or a chef and do this kind of artsy thing. And he would watch like Gordon Ramsay and think that by screaming, that's exactly how to do things. But as we all know in life, screaming doesn't always get you everywhere. Mom's health wasn't exactly perfect either still. She was in and out of the hospital with infections and things like that. Remember, she's on this TPN, which went into what was called a main line. It wasn't an IV, it was a main line that was actually kind of like an IV, but it went into a major artery and so it often would get infected. So she would be in and out of the hospital with infections and illnesses and things like that. Anytime her temperature was 100.4 or higher, she had to immediately go to the hospital. And that's where my sister came to play. She was able to go and check on my mom more, take her to appointments. She had a little bit more flexible of a job, where I was working 2 jobs to try to make ends meet, on top of my ex-husband working his job. Life actually wasn't too terribly bad. My dad had decided to get remarried, my biological father, and asked that we come down to Nashville to see him get remarried. When we got there, I finally got to see my brother for the first time since he was 15, and it was a lovely trip down. Unfortunately, due to my ex-husband and the methadone, he literally slept the whole way. So it was really difficult because I had to drive by myself the whole way with really no one to talk to and 2 dogs in the back seat. While we were down there, I could see the depression on my brother's face. And I had just gotten over my bout of depression as well. And all I wanted to do was give him a better life. He was stuck in Alabama. He had no license, unable to get a license due to some medical issues he's had in the past. And honestly, he really needed some help. So I said to him, how would you feel if you came up to Maryland and lived with me? We run a pizza shop. We'll put you to work so you'll get some work skills. And you know what? You'll get to live with us. We have a 2-bedroom house. Why not? Both my ex-husband and my brother agreed that it would probably be for the best. My dad, on the other hand, was trying to get him to live with him. We all knew that my brother suffered from depression, but it was what's better, us or him? And honestly, My biological father, he likes to drink a lot and he likes to get in some trouble from time to time. And I've been trying everything I could to just really live a good life and to find my way in the world. And I thought that that's kind of what my brother needed more. My brother decided that he was going to come and live with me. I purchased his plane ticket. I even made it so that way my brother took a plane from Alabama to Nashville, stayed with my dad for like 2 weeks so he would have some time with him, and then went from Nashville to Baltimore, and that's when we got him. But while all this is going on, I had to admit to myself, I couldn't keep working 14-hour days and driving 1 hour each way back and forth. 16 hours a day, our poor dogs barely saw us. It just wasn't working out. So I had talked to my ex and said, look, I'm going to find us a closer place to live, to the shop. I can't keep driving like this. And he just said, okay, as long as I don't have to do anything. All right, fine. So I found an apartment. It was still a 2-bedroom. It was 15 minutes away from our pizza shop. And I proceeded to go about the motions of moving us right before my brother showed up. So pretty much my brother spent one night in our old place and then started anew in our new place 15 minutes away from the pizza joint. I was really happy. I was really excited. Finally, I'm not having to commute as much. I finally have my brother here. We're going to show him a great time and a great life. A few days later, that's not exactly how my ex saw it. He saw it as I took him from the only place that he had ever known, because he grew up where we were living before. Now he was in a place that he knew nothing, and he was stressed out because he had to start driving an hour to the methadone clinic and then back. And I'm like, well, if you really want to get better, you should be weaning yourself off of it. But in the meantime, in order to get into the local methadone clinic, we had to have a local address. So the transition from one methadone clinic to another took about 2 weeks for everything to go through for him to then start with a new clinic. So it was a very stressful time. I remember having lots of fights and my brother kind of looking at me going, are you sure it's okay that I come here to live? And I was just like, it's okay, it's fine. But unfortunately, it's just a little stressful at the moment. Other than that, though, we had a great time. The next day after my brother got off the plane from in Baltimore, he got to meet the Ravens cheerleaders. The Ravens won the Super Bowl that year, and we went to some sports bar and watched the whole game because we didn't have cable yet at the time because we had just moved into the new apartment. To him, other than the little spats that my ex and I would have, life was great and we were having a fun time. And him and my ex would love to play video games all the time. So it was like having another older brother too. They were just in heaven together. But as great as life was, one of the issues that I was also having was that, well, we needed workers. My ex-husband had a friend of his who would come and work. He was an ex-Marine, dealt with a lot of PTSD, smoked a lot of weed. And honestly, the two of them loved to sell weed out of that pizza joint. And boy, did I hate that. I really did. I didn't think that it was the right thing to do and that it was putting literally my livelihood in danger. It was almost like looking at porn on the computer again. It's just not right and you know it. It's not legal. And at the time, recreational marijuana usage was not legal in the state of Maryland. His friend finally decides that working for the pizza joint's just a bit too much. He can't keep a steady schedule from time to time. He has some, bouts of depression or just can't get out of bed or has back pain, things like that. Being he couldn't show up on a more regular basis, he decided that maybe working for the pizza joint an hour and a half away from his house wasn't exactly the best idea, and we agreed. But for the most part, life wasn't bad. We got some new workers. We got some good people in. My brother was starting to get the hang of things at the pizza business, and I was learning more back end stuff with construction and pizza and just how to run a business in general using QuickBooks and things like that. And on the construction end, I was also learning how to do prevailing wage, which was always something good to learn for future jobs. At one point, the owners even asked us if we would buy the pizza place because honestly, it was just too much for them. The one thing that I had to tell them was no. I'm sorry, I'm not willing to buy a house with my husband, nevertheless a business. I did not realize how serious they were about that until one day, a new owner showed up.